Thanks for attending Tech Tuesday, taking your email to the next level. I'm Tom Levine, Cornerstone's tech guru, and today we're going to be covering Outlook, a lot of different things about it, actually. So without further ado, let's get started. First, just some general housekeeping information, though. I do ask that you ask your questions in the questions bar. I am going to be somewhat monitoring that during the presentation in case something is unclear. But if you have a general question you'd like to save it for the end, I'll go ahead and answer it then. Also, please don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have an additional follow-up question about Outlook, or if you'd like to cover something that I don't, cover here. You can reach out to me directly at the number on the screen or using my email, which is tlevine@crnstone.com. Also, don't forget to connect with Cornerstone on social media. We have a Monday Minute newsletter also that gets sent out. So if you would like to subscribe to that, just let us know. Also, don't forget about our Autopilot program. Autopilot is our compensation-based client referral program that offers, our services to your clients for things that you might not sell. Let's say you're trying to focus on medical insurance, but someone needs LTD coverage. That's something that we can be here for. To activate Autopilot, you just go to www.crnstone.com/what-we-offer/Autopilot, and we're always happy to help. And last but not least, don't forget about our Refer an Agent program. Refer an Agent is really useful. If you know an agent who might benefit from our services, then you just, step one, send your referral to us through the website. Step two, we track and monitor the results of the referral over the next 6 months. And step three is once your referral submits business within that 6-month period, you earn a $250 bonus. So it's a good way to help out yourself and us at the same time. So that being said, Outlook. Outlook is kind of what we're trying to focus on today. So I figured we'd start by just having it open over here. First thing you want to know, though, is probably how to connect your email accounts. And that's not something I'm going to fully cover today. What I am going to do is I'm going to put a few links in the chat. First, that link right there is a link to a LifeWire article that I think is really useful. It walks through exactly how to connect Yahoo accounts into Outlook. Sometimes Outlook can have a little bit of trouble connecting Yahoo accounts, so that covers more of the exact detail of how you would go about that process. Additionally, I have another link that I just put in the chat. That goes to Microsoft's support page, and it goes through very detailed how to, connect other different types of accounts, be it a Gmail account or a LifeWire account or whatever sort of email account you're using. That can walk you through how to set it up yourself if you're so inclined. A lot of people tend to have some IT person, do that part for them, which is why we're not covering it here today. It's not like it's a laborious process, but it's something that I don't think many people really need to know how to do. There are a lot of other people who can do that for you. But also you can see this is Outlook that I have open. Outlook is a little bit different in this version from maybe the one that you're using, but a lot of what we're covering will be pretty much the same. We're using Outlook 2016 in this, if I believe. If you're using an older version of Outlook, it'll have that like gray border. A lot of what we're covering today will be applicable in the exact same way, but the way that I'm going about things and the look of my screen might be a little bit different. Additionally, I do want to mention one more thing. I'm bringing up the search menu right here, but if I type mail, you see a separate app called Mail right in here. Mail is the default mail service that Windows 10 comes with. I believe they actually started it back for Windows 8, but it was rather clunky in that system and no one really liked or tried to use it. Mail is kind of nice if you're a casual user of email, but there are quite a few downsides to it. If I'm just going to click here, I don't think it'll open up, but this is sort of how Mail looks when you open it up, and you can just easily click through, add an account, do whatever you need to, and it will connect. It looks very different from Outlook though, and it's an entirely different app. If you're using Mail, that's not what we're covering here today. The reason I bring it up is because there are a ton of different features that Mail does not have that Outlook does. And that's why I say Outlook is probably what you'll need for business. Just to go through a few examples. Outlook, you can send and view email from shared inboxes. So let's say you're working with a team of people for commissions. In my case, that would be myself, our other commission specialist, Leslie, and a few other people from finance. We have a commissions email address at commissions@crnstone.com. And if you send an email there, all of us will get notified. That's not something that you're able to do if you just have Windows Mail. Another thing you can do is you can access public folders, which is if you have a larger organization, you're working with a lot of different people, you can gain access to all of other people's sort of schedules and different email notifications through shared public folders. That's not something that Windows Mail can do. You also get to categorize messages, ignore chain conversations that you might be tagged in, but you don't necessarily need to follow. You can clean up entire threads of emails and condense them into one little email notice in your box. You can also unsubscribe to mass emails. You gain access to different mail tips and other help options from Microsoft as well. And you can even flag emails for follow-up, which is this little flag right here that we'll get to in a minute. You can also send emails as plain text, which is pretty useful. What that means is instead of having your text encoded and sending a bunch of files with it, it's just a text that you send. But I'll show you that too in a moment. It's a little confusing unless you're looking at it directly. You also get to do things that I use every day, like create inbox rules, get local email storage, gain access to your entire contact lists, and highlight terms in a search result. So those are all things that I mentioned that Outlook does, but Windows Mail doesn't. And if you're using Windows Mail, I'd highly recommend switching, not just for all of those options, but the biggest reason is because we work in insurance. Mail doesn't work with additional app integration, which means if you're trying to encrypt your emails, Mail probably won't let you do that. Meanwhile, Outlook does. And encryption is required if you're going to be sending personal health information. Cornerstone uses Zix, and it's what I'd highly recommend if you don't have an encryption service. But it's a little more professional. The other reason why Mail won't work for you is because, unlike with Outlook, which can be set up locally on your computer for sending and receiving or your own servers, Mail can't. Mail exclusively uses Microsoft servers to send and receive email, and you can encrypt that traffic so Microsoft doesn't know what's going on within your email. At least you would be if it had third-party integration. But Mail doesn't, and only Outlook does. So because Mail can't really encrypt things, whatever you send over it, Microsoft gets a hold of. So you want to be careful with what you send over Mail versus Outlook. So that being said, one last thing that I want to cover before we get into how to operate in Outlook is what the actual cost of this product is. Microsoft's been changing their tune recently with owning your own software. I personally am not a big fan of it, but I can understand why. Microsoft 365 is likely what you're going to need to use if you're trying to gain access to Outlook or any of the other Microsoft suite of programs. The cost for a personal license is $99 a year for like the full 365 personal one. If you're using a family subscription, then that's $69.99 a year per contract. So if you have like 3 family members, then you would only have to pay $69.99 a year for all 3 members versus the $100 just for a single contract. However, there are also business options. The business standard, which is what I recommend, is about $12.50 per month per user, which equates to about $150 a year per user. But I believe they have a minimum requirement of like 6 or 7 contracts for that. So, even though you're overall saving money, on an individual contract, it's still more costly. The other option that you could do, and it's getting more difficult to find, so I'm going to link it as well in the chat, right there. That is the link to Microsoft Office 2019. And as far as I know, it is the last standalone Office product that you can just buy and use one time. The one-time purchase is a little steep. It's $249.99, but it's what I personally use at home, or at least I use kind of a similar version. It hasn't really changed much from 2016, which is what I use, but you really can't find any other options unless you go to eBay and get an installation disc. So it is a little bit expensive, but for using it for business, it's very much worth it. And that's sort of what I'm going to try to show you today. So let's get started with all of the different pane options. Up here, this section is called the ribbon, and I'm going to circle it real quick. That's this section up here. The ribbon is sort of what I refer to as how to navigate through your mail folders. It has a bunch of different options that we'll be going through in a moment. The other option, or the other section, is the side ribbon right over here. This shows all of your different folders if you're in your mail view, or all of the other different items that you have available to look through. So you can see I have an outbox, which is where my sent emails go. I have all of the items that I've deleted from all of my folders right over here. I have sent items, which are emails that I've sent out personally. I have drafts, which are emails that I can just start typing, but not finish, which we'll get to in a moment. And I have my inbox as well. Inbox is where I put all of my folders personally, but you can kind of arrange them however you feel throughout all of this pane. You also have a favorites bar right up here, which is for frequently accessed folders. This section down here, though, is what I'd like to draw your attention to next. These little icons here are what you use to browse through the different integrated options of Outlook. As you can see, we have this mail section right here highlighted first. But what that is that just tells me that I'm looking through all of my email. Outlook has a bunch of other things that we're going to cover later on, but one of the important ones is this little icon here. This is a calendar. You also gain access to your contacts, which is that icon, and your logged tasks, which is this icon down here that I just circled. Additionally, we have the viewing pane right here. The viewing pane is where you'll see all of the emails listed in each of your different folders. So if you're trying to find something within a folder, that's where it is. In this viewing pane, you can sort by all the emails available or unread quickly by using these options up here. And if you want to get a little more in depth, you have a search bar right up over here. You just type into the search bar, hit enter, and it'll search through whatever mailbox you're trying to get it to search through in order to find emails. This is sort of the lowest of detailed search methods. There are a few others which we're going to cover in our next Tech Tuesday. One other thing that you can do is you can change a lot of different options in Outlook as well. Here, I'm going to switch out of my drawing mode, and we're going to go through the different menu options now, starting from the Home tab and then working our way over. Home generally is where you're going to want to stay if you're trying to just send, receive, and interact with emails on a daily basis. It's kind of like a hotbar, or kind of the same as the taskbar that I have over here for Outlook, or not Outlook, I'm sorry, for Microsoft overall. As you can see, I have a bunch of different options here. If I hit new email, I open up a new email. I can also click this drop down here for new items. And as you can see, I can make a new email message, a new appointment, schedule a new meeting, create a new contact, or add a task here as well. I can choose to ignore a conversation, clean up a conversation as well. And if I click on the drop down, I see I can not only clean up the conversation, but I can clean up an entire folder this way, or clean up folders and subfolders. Now, if I hit clean up folder, it gives me this little notice here that says all redundant messages in the current folder will be moved to the deleted items folder. And what that means is if you've got a long chain of emails, like, you've been going back and forth with a client for 30 or 40 different emails, and in that chain, you've, just been hitting reply, reply, reply. You have the entire list of everything that you've said so far. Maybe not, all of the attachments, but you've got an entire list of what was said. What cleanup does is it removes all of those extraneous folders or extraneous email messages so that you only have the one most recent message from your conversation. If I hit cleanup folder here, it'll tell me no messages were cleaned up because I don't have any other messages to mess with. Then you also have your junk email. Junk will allow you to actually block different recipients, as well as, re-enable a sender through the never block sender option. You can never block like at crnstone.com emails as well. That's called a domain. It's the second half of most emails. It's whatever comes with the at symbol and then what's after it. Additionally, you can choose groups as well. We'll get into groups probably a little more next time once we've covered more of the basics, but generally this is a pretty useful feature and I use it all the time. If I hit junk email options, as you can see, there are a bunch of different things here as well, but we're not going to get too into the weeds with it. I can also delete an email by clicking this delete icon, but I don't think that's the easiest way. The most, I guess, natural way of interacting with emails, in my opinion, is to just right click on the email and then look through all of your options here. A lot of people don't like that option. I do, just because I think it's easier to do things in these 2 clicks. But if you're already on your home folder, you could delete an email by hitting this delete button, or you could highlight it and hit that delete button up there. You also gain access to archiving, which I don't really recommend setting up unless you kind of know what you're doing. But what archiving does is it takes all of the emails that you've received and throws them into like a saved file on your desk. Then it will remove the emails, remove the emails from your list as well. So that way you can free up space. If you get into email jail, but you don't want to go through the hassle of saving every single individual email that you've, had to look through, but you don't want to delete them, you can archive. Archive's the solution to that. You can also quickly reply all, or forward emails using this respond feature, or schedule a meeting again, or reply to a meeting, and forward different emails as attachments here. You gain access to a lot of other quick step options. Sorry about that. If I click down here, quick steps are just click here and it does it. So if I hit, if I have this email selected and I hit reply and delete, it will open up this reply, and now it's deleted the other email from my inbox. The reason I had this email in here, as you can see though, is because unless there's an email in a folder, you really can't go through all of these different functions. If I have an email selected and hit move, I can also quickly move an email to different folders using this menu. Or if you have integrated functionality with OneNote, which if you have access to 365 or the rest of the Microsoft Office suite, you probably do, that's another option. OneNote is a really useful tool that I want to cover later on too, don't worry. We also can gain access to our full address book just by clicking address book here. Or we can filter our emails using these filters as well. The reason that I wanted to go through that one in full detail though, is because the home bar is pretty much all most people will ever need to use as far as Outlook is concerned. They have a lot more advanced functionality as well. If I click on send and receive, that shows you literally all of the send and receive options that are available. I can send and receive all folders if I, have my emails blocked for a moment. I could also update folders, send all, send and receive groups. These things you probably won't have to mess with unless you work offline frequently, which you can do just by clicking this. What work offline does is it disconnects your Outlook from the internet. So if you're trying to draft an email and you don't want it to accidentally, get sent, you can just click work offline and work on it, and it won't send. It'll also stop you from receiving new emails as well. You can also download different heading information, but I'd really not recommend that. Most people who send and receive emails will either send a more detailed attachment as a PDF, for a full newsletter, and that's kind of what I'd recommend doing. Then there are the different folder options here. I can create a new folder by clicking on the new folder option, and that'll bring up the new folder menu. What folders are the same sort of thing as folders were in our first webinar. They're different places for you to store files, and within Outlook those files are just called folders, and we can set them up pretty easily. As you can see, we get access to this sort of weird menu here. Let's go ahead and name this folder though. Let's name it, I don't know, say Cornerstone example. Right there. I just type out the name and that's the name of my folder. What I can do though, is I can choose where I'm going to put this folder. I can put it under my sent items. I can put it under my inbox, or I could create a tier or like a whole new place for it just by clicking on example. That's what I'm gonna do to start. And if I hit OK here, I now have a Cornerstone example folder. I can rename that folder by clicking on this folder option here. And let's say we're just going to rename it. Let's say example 6. Now I've renamed it to example 6. And that was because I had it selected and hit rename. I can also choose to mark all different emails as read here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mark this email as unread real quick. The way I did that was I just right click and I hit mark as unread, but now that it's unread, it'll tell me mark as read. And if I wanted to just mark everything in a folder as read, I could go to folder, mark all as read. And because I had the inbox selected, all of these emails are now listed as read. I can also run rules, and rules we're going to get more into in our next presentation. But what rules are really is just sort of a list of commands that you can tell Outlook to do. Let's say you want all emails from your boss marked as high importance. You could set that up. So you could say all emails from this person's address come in marked as high importance, and then they'll stick out to you more. That's sort of my favorite functionality of Outlook. So when we cover that next time, that's going to be really useful. I can also show all folders A to Z. That's not really a useful button in my opinion, but what it does is it organizes all folders alphabetically underneath whatever folder option you have. If I hit example at Sierra and Stone, however, that goes away. It's only a function that you have if you have folders underneath other folders, like this inbox does. If I click on this dropdown, as you can see, I have example 1 and example 2. If I drag example 1 and drop, you can see I can move folders inside of other folders this way. And that's sort of how you interact with most things in the Windows environment anyway, so it's fairly intuitive. I could also say drag example 6 into inbox, and it'll create it here. It added that because that is the most recent one, so it went to the bottom. If I drag example 1 back out, or up, I guess, to my normal email address, then drag it back into inbox, it will automatically alphabetize them because I have this show all folders A to Z clicked. If I remove that, do that again. And say have it right here. So I dropped that where that little line showed up. That shows that I'm moving this folder in between example 2 and example 6. Or at least it should have done that. I think it's sometimes a little glitchy with the alphabetized folders option. But as you can see, I can put folders inside of folders inside of folders, however deep you want it to go. If you wanted to say organize it by whoever sent you the email, then you could also sub-organize that and say, like, let's use that boss example again. Emails that I receive from my boss, I want marked as high importance, and I want emails that, are received by my boss to go and say, let's just rename this boss. I can rename this one something like, emails received, and rename this one to emails sent. And then I can track entire conversations to this person specifically in these two folders. And that way they don't just go through the general items folders. Additionally, I can clean up a folder, which we've already covered back in the Home tab, or I could delete all emails from this option. If I, accidentally delete something, I can recover it to a degree. We'll touch on that here again in a minute. And I can choose to show a folder in favorites. As you can see, my inbox is in this favorites bar. If I unclick show in favorites, then that favorites option disappears. As you can see, I no longer have my inbox in my favorites. If, however, I want to move it back there, I just click show in favorites and it pops up. If I want it to be in a different location, I can just drag and drop. Also, you get to different automatic archive settings in here. The archives, which we were talking about before, can be set up to kind of rotate automatically. So like once every month, it'll automatically archive. This is something that I set up, but it's not something I recommend if you're not fully versed in how Outlook is organized. You can also set different folder permissions, and this is useful if you work in a larger organization. For example, if I go into my folder permissions right here, I can see a bunch of different general information. For instance, the location of this email address is just there. This is an example one, so we have this kind of removed from everything else. Additionally, I can show the number of unread items. This will pop up as a little number next to the folder. Or I could show the total number of items as well using these options. I gain access to auto archive settings here as well as different permission level things if you're an admin. Or I could synchronize the filters with the folders. It's not something I'd really recommend getting into. The next tab is the View tab, and the View tab is what you're going to use most often if you just start up in Outlook. One thing that I'm probably missing from my screen that I wanted to wait to show you is a to-do bar. The to-do bar is generally over here, and what it does is it gives you access to a bunch of different information on your right-hand side. For instance, calendar opens up my calendar, and it will list different, tasks and different meetings that I have over here. If I want to enable my tasks, which are, different things I've flagged, then I can click tasks and that becomes available as well. This should look a little bit more like your version of email now if you're using something prior to 2016. And you get that to enable through this to-do bar here. One thing that you can't turn on though, additionally, is people. And that just shows your different favorite contacts. So if I were, sending back and forth with my boss again, my boss would probably pop up here in my favorites. If I wanted to send an email to them, then I could just click there and get the option. I personally don't like this option just because I think it takes up too much space, and I like to use my Outlook to do all my scheduling. You can also open a reminders window, which opened on my second screen, so I dragged it back in, and it just shows you all of the different things coming up in your itinerary or to-do list. Also from this icon, you can open a new window, and you just have an entirely new window of of Outlook then that opens up. You can also close all items. It closes all additional windows or different emails you have open. The last thing I really wanted to mention as far as these tabs go are the add-ins and help functions. Add-ins are different things that you can integrate with Outlook. As you can see, I have a GoToMeeting option integrated right up here in the corner. This means that I kind of, have all of my Outlook schedules synced with my GoToMeeting schedules. So if you're using GoToMeeting, like we covered in our last webinar, you can integrate it with Outlook and just have all of your scheduling linked. If there's something that you have a question about too with Outlook in general, you can also click on this help section here. And what help does is it brings up a quick search pane for how to do different things. If I click on email, for example, it'll give me a bunch of different links for things like creating an email message or creating a message template. These are things that are kind of useful features that I'm not going to really get into too much. So if you have a question about how to set those up, this explains it very thoroughly. I can also contact Microsoft Office support directly by clicking on this option, or I could suggest a feature. If there's something about Outlook that you don't like, I'd recommend using this option. Microsoft does actually look through this and take it into account as it designs future products. And with 365 being updated regularly and yearly, because it's a subscription, not just software that you own, it's something that they actually do take into a lot of consideration. You can also get a diagnostic option here, but you really shouldn't do that unless you have more of an IT professional sort of outlook on things. So that covers most of the general menu tabs, but there are quite a few other things you can do in Outlook, and we haven't even touched on emails yet. The email options, like I said, what I like to do is just right click and then I scroll through them. One of the things I like to do is categorize. And what that does is it sort of color codes your emails. For example, I have my red named to urgent, but I could also label something as green. If the first time you label something in a color, it will ask you what that category is. And so for green here, I can call it test. I can also bind it to a key shortcut. So if I just click on an email and then hit, let's say, Control F4, that's not a good one to use. Let's just go ahead and click it there and hit yes. And that's my shortcut for flagging it as green. I can unflag something or uncategorize it by just right clicking, going back to categories and hitting clear all categories. Then if I do the Control F4, as you can see, that little shortcut I created automatically flagged it as the green category. This is something you can use to sort of categorize different tiers of importance of email. Additionally, you can mark an item as read or unread by using this option here. You can quickly reply to an email or reply to everyone in an email as well as forwarding different emails to different people just by using those quick options. We also have different quick steps that you have access to, and this is just a clone of this menu up here in the home screen. You can also access rules for different emails from here as well as moving emails to different folders. For instance, that example 6 folder. If I check my inbox under example 6, I have that created here. Additionally, I can send things to OneNote, ignore emails, or categorize entire senders as junk just by right clicking, which is why what I tend to do. You can also interact with that menu like I showed you before, but I think right clicking and just looking through my options is a little easier. Additionally, I can gain access to some more advanced features. If I click on File, then I get access to a whole bunch of different things. If I'm trying to send an automatic reply, that's located here, but we're going to get more into that in our next webinar. I can also choose a bunch of different tools and cleanups. As you can see, we can create archives, clean up old items, which we've talked about a few times already, empty the deleted items folder, or clean up my mailbox from here. I can also import or export other libraries by using these options here. And I say libraries, but what I really mean are Outlook data files. I can also save my, emails. If I just select one, hit File, Save As, then I can save an email directly to my desktop or wherever I want on my computer. Additionally, you have the Office account options, which you can manually edit if you so choose. I don't think there's much of a point to this option though. Or you can get into the deep, serious options by going to File, Outlook Options. I say the serious options because this is really everything that I've shown you before, all condensed into one screen. We can control a bunch of different things about, appearance using this general menu. And if I wanted to say, change the color of Office because I don't like the color setting they have, I can do it from here under this Personalize Your Copy of Microsoft Office section. If I click on background, I personally like the circuit option as a background, and I'm not a big fan of the colorful theme. They have a bunch of different options here, and I'll just sort of walk through some of them for you. White is what I personally use. And what it does is it takes away a lot of the color of Outlook and just makes it a little easier to see things. That circuit design that I mentioned is up here in this top bar, and it's sort of a unique little look on design, but you can't really see it too well on the white background. If I get back into File Options, I can change that as well. They have a black theme, which dyes everything black. If you're not a big fan of the, white Outlook, black might be an option. It sort of dyes everything a little to your eye strain. The other option that they have as far as colors are concerned is dark gray. And this is just a slightly lighter dark version. One thing that I do want to mention though, is if you change your theme this way, you're also changing the theme of all other Outlook options that you've got. I'm dragging over here the Outlook Basics of Word, which, Outlook Basics is sort of what I called this script, and this is just Word, and you can see it also applied the same changes. So any change you make to the theme of Outlook are also going to get applied across the entire suite of Office products that you use. Here we're just going to go back into options and change it to something a little bit easier to see. I like white, and then we will change it to clouds. That's a little harder to see what the clouds are in that background, but it's fine. That's sort of how you would change some general appearance options. One of the other things that I think that's useful to change as far as the actual display and text of Outlook is if you go into View and hit View Settings, that opens up a bunch of different view options for the different columns that you have presented and other things. I'm going to go back to Inbox for this, and I'm going to drag an email over there as well. I do have a few other emails, I think, in these folders. They might be somewhere. Yeah, okay. But either way, what these view settings do is they first, if you click on columns, let you gain access to what sort of columns you're going to view things in. What I mean by that is what you have available to see if you click on an email. As you can see, we see header status, importance, reminder, flag status, icons, attachments, who the email is from, the subject of the email, when it was received, the size, categories, auto forwarding, and mention. These are all columns that are available to see under this folder. If I wanted to add a column, such as whoever was CC'd in an email, I would click on the available columns and hit add. If I don't like where it is in this tier, I can move up or move down. Personally, I think a CC should be right after the sender of the email. So I put it right under from, and I'm going to hit OK. Hit OK again. Now, it's hard to see because of the size of my screen. The screen is set to a more condensed view right now, and that is because it's, the ratio or aspect ratio on my monitor. What these categories and things that it's talking about are, though, let's see if what I can get. Maybe if I drag it into example 2, it might show me a little more detail. Typically, it pops up with more things as you get other emails. So I'm just going to send a few here by getting new email example, hitting T for the subject and hitting send. I'll also drag a few emails into example 1 just to show things. Okay, so this shows the different timelines of what I've sent. If I scroll over an email, you can see some of the additional options pop up. This little flag icon here is normally what you would use to follow up on an email. If I follow up, let's say today, then it creates a little task for me to follow up on the email down here. I could also go to follow up, custom, and I can customize what this follow up says. For example, I can change the flag to say, reply. And I can even choose a different date for it. Let's say March 24th. That's when I'm going to start. And the 31st is when it's due. I can click this little notification here to add a little reminder notice as well. And I can tell it to remind me, let's say today at 4:30 about this. I can even change a little sound notification that will play when, I get reminders for it, but I'm not going to get too deep into that. If I hit OK, as you can see, we've changed some settings here. If I double click on the task, it just opens up the email. If I right click and go to follow up, I can also clear that flag that I just created as well. It's hard to see in condensed view what those additional view options really help with, but I think it's pretty useful if you're using a wider monitor. Additionally, going back into view, you can also group different things by other things. This is useful if you want to sort of tier your email lists. I unclick automatically group according to arrangement here, but the automatic one's pretty good. And I can actually tier things by, the contacts or the CC, the attachment. So let's say I want to group items by their attachments and then by categories. It would then show my emails listed by attachments and categories. What I think is probably going to be more beneficial to show is probably grouping by contacts and by who they're from. Hit OK. Hit OK. And that's this grouping that was then applied here. As you can see, it looks a little bit different. I have different contacts here, but I don't have any. But it's grouped all of my emails by example user. If I had other emails from different people in here as well, then I would be able to, just click on the drop downs and see who they're from. Going back into view settings, I don't really like the view settings here. So I'm going to clear all and set them automatically. One other thing you can do is you can sort emails automatically. The default is to sort emails that you've received automatically in a descending format, which means that the most recent email is at the top, but you can change that. You could also sort them by the recipient names or by how sensitive they are, like if someone's marked them as important or not, as well as the different start dates or end dates of different tasks or subjects. You can then add other sorts to that as well. You can also filter emails and search using this advanced, search option. You can even tie it into a SQL database if you want, but that's a little more advanced. You can search, who that's from. So let's do example user. Okay, okay. And now I'm only seeing emails from example user. If I wanted to change that again, go to the filter. I'm going to search from delavina@crnstone.com. Okay, okay again. And now, as you can see, it doesn't show any emails. I don't really think that's very useful because you can just use the search bar anyway. So turning off that filter, you can also get into other settings, which I think is most useful if you have, a lot of eye strain or can't really see the exact size of something. I like to change the column font and row font quite a lot. The column font is the font of all of these options right up here that I'm kind of circling. Here, it might help if I actually circle that. This section up here. And the row font are all of the actual body fonts in here. Okay. You can also set up a reading pane. I personally don't recommend it. We don't use it here, but another thing that I haven't covered because it's completely disabled on our computers is a reading pane, which is when you just click on an option in your email, then it will actually pop up and show sort of a preview of what that email is. The reason we don't use that here is because if it's got malware attached to the email, then that malware will then instantly be transferred to your computer. So it's a really big security hole, and that's why we don't use it. But let's go ahead and change the column font. Let's make it Show Card Gothic in bold at size 16, because that'll be easier to see. If I hit OK, let's change the row fonts as well. Let's change the row font to something really crazy. Let's do Pristina in just oblique at size 48. And this should just show you all of the different crazy things that you can do. As you can see, we've got all of these headers in different fonts, and they're really, really large now. That way, if you have trouble sort of seeing all of your different emails in your inbox, you can change that there. I'm going to also show you here by clicking back to the normal inbox that those view settings are just for the specific folder you've applied them to. For example, I changed all the view settings in example 1, but in my inbox right now, that view setting didn't change. So it depends on what you have selected over here when you're changing your view settings. I'm going to change my view settings back to standard. And that was just, I like Tahoma actually. Tahoma, regular. Let's do size 9. And then once again, Tahoma regular. Size 9. And there we go. We have everything set to size 9 Tahoma again. The other view settings you can change are conditional formatting. So this is the format of text for things that are like unread messages or group headers, things like that. You can change that option by just clicking on font here under conditional formatting. You can also format the columns as well. That's sort of the section up in here that I was referring to earlier. And what I can do here is I can just sort of rearrange the width of the different columns. If I hit reset current view, it will reset everything to the view settings that Outlook originally had. And then I hit OK. And as you can see, all of my views are back to normal. The other thing that I did want to cover real quick is how to create and manage your signatures. Now, signatures are pretty useful. They're what I use to sign all of my emails. And the way you can do that, well, there are two different ways you can get there. If you have an open message, like a new one, or if you're replying to a message, it'll be available right up here in the message section, signature. I can click signature, signatures, and then I can get to this signature manager here. The official way to do that, though, is to go through File, Options, Mail, and then Signatures. From here, you can open up the signature menu without having to open up a separate email. I just never go through this because I'm always sending and receiving emails. So it's a nice, easy shortcut that you can get to access these. As you can see, I've got a few different ones created right now. And I made these actually a few years ago, but these are a bunch of different signatures that I have. I have merge, which is just, an actual full email. It's hello, it would appear your account is, overdue. And this is just a general overdue notice. I have the example, which is what I have here set up for what I think a good signature looks like. As you can see, I've got my name over here, my title, a contact phone number, a link to our website, and the full address here, along with a bunch of different pictures and sponsored things from Cornerstone. As you can see, this is a little old if I scroll down, because I'm still talking about the 2019 webinar series. And lastly, I have a sample email that I've made here for Tom, and I just wanted to show you that you can just copy and paste hyperlinks into your signature as well. That's just going to the website. It's literally as easy as hitting your Internet Explorer, going to something like www.crnstone.com, copying the URL, and then pasting it and hitting enter. It's the same thing. But if you want to create an actual email signature, you can start that by hitting new. It'll prompt you if you've edited emails. If you want to save the changes you made to those signatures, I hit no. And then you can type a name for your signature. I'm going to type Tech Guru and hit OK. As you can see now, it's got a new signature option up here for me called Tech Guru. And if you couldn't quite see where I was circling there, it's right up here. Okay, so this is how I know which signature I'm looking at. I can just click and jump to which signature I want after I create it, and then I can edit it. If I, let's say, wanted to just type Tech Guru and then get a picture of, Cornerstone, I could do that. The way I could do that is hitting the media option right over here. And what that'll do is it'll tell me that I'm trying to insert a picture. Now I'm going to run through this a little quick, but if I go into Tech Tuesday 21 and Outlook, then I have a Cornerstone image here. If I hit insert, that's how I would insert a picture. I used the entire picture of Cornerstone from, well, a while ago in our go-to series. So if I want to remove that, then I can right click it and hit cut, and it will remove that picture from the email. You can use this to insert company logos or other different pictures you'd like. You can also select this little hyperlink option. If I hit insert or reinsert that picture here, then click on it, hit this little hyperlink option. This right here can allow me to kind of link a hyperlink to that image. For instance, if I wanted www or HTTPS, let's see if it's got it. Nope. Let's say that I wanted to use the link to Cornerstone. I copy that link, paste it here, and hit OK. And now if people click on that picture in my signature, they'll go directly to Cornerstone's website. This is pretty good, but if you wanted to add those lines that I had in mine, that's actually a key on your keyboard. It's right above the / option. And let's say Cornerstone or something. Let's say you wanted to change a font of what you were typing in as well. You can do that with these options up here. For instance, let's make this Algerian, size 16. And let's say I wanted to change the color of it as well, or some of the other options. I can change the underline, italic, and bold-faced options from here. Or I could hit font and go to the more advanced font options. From here, I can change the font color directly to orange, let's say. And then I can just type Cornerstone like that. Before doing anything else, I'm going to save the signature because this is our example. And it automatically applies it here if you haven't, but this is where you get automatic signatures over here in the upper right. You first choose the account that it's going to apply to if you have multiple. If you don't, it'll automatically use yours. And then I'm going to click on New Messages. And I'm going to apply Tech Guru on new messages I'm sending. And let's say that Tom signature for replies and forwards. Now that I've got that all set up, I'm going to hit OK. And that saved my signature options. Just to show you what I mean. Now if I open this email that I sent to myself and hit reply, it automatically has that hyperlink that I set as my example signature. I believe it was Tom. If I wanted to change the signature that I have displayed on my email real quick, I could just click on this signature option and hit X merge, or some of the other signature options I have, and it'll automatically change to whatever that signature is. Additionally, I could do the same thing to get to the Tech Guru signature that we created. And as you can see, now that I'm hovering over the picture, if I hit Control and click on it, it'll automatically open a link directly to Cornerstone's website. Additionally, I'm just going to not save my changes here, but hit New Email. And as you can see, the email that I set up as what I put on new messages is now automatically here as well. You can click on To gain access to your full list of contacts, or you can just type out who you want to send a message to, which is what I typically do. I just type EX and it'll bring up a whole history of my contacts. For instance, example user or an example email I had for Yahoo. CCs right in here are also something that's pretty useful. CC is what you can do to carbon copy someone. What that means is whoever you're sending this email to will get a copy, as well as seeing who you've sent these emails to as well. Then there's BCC, which is a blind carbon copy, and anyone you list here under the BCC will get a copy of the email that you sent, but will not actually appear to the receiver as though they received a copy. Subject here is whatever will pop up in this section here. For example, if I'm sending this to myself at example user, and I make the subject test of signature, then the test of signature line will pop up when I hit send. Let's also just put some stuff in here. And let's say I'm halfway through the email and don't want to hit send. What I can do is I can hit save and close out of it. And it automatically saves it here to my drafts. I can double click to reopen it. And I'm just going to hit send, and it automatically goes to my outbox. It'll take it a moment to send because I have a rule applied here, which, like I said, we'll get into a little more detail next time. But that is about all I had planned to cover today. These are sort of the basics of how to use Outlook. So it's not something that, would have all been new to you probably, but it's here and it's incredibly useful. Next time we go through things, I'm going to cover rules, other different reply options that I didn't cover today, how to group and manage different contacts, and other additional things as well. Things like how to back up your contacts and how to create search folders and do more advanced, functionality of finding different emails in different inboxes. But that's about all I had covered for today. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat or throw one in the question tab right here. And I already have one question here. It looks like we've got one that just says, let's see, can you save the size of a pic, or can you change the size of a picture in a signature? And yes, you actually can. I didn't do that originally just because it's not something I typically do, but let's go ahead and open up that example signature that we were using. I'm gonna go into my options, mail, and hit signatures. Let's go back into that Tech Guru one that I made. If I click on it, it's probably hard to see in the stream, but there's this little gray border all along the side of the picture. And just like resizing anything else, typically you can drag and drop with this as well. It's a little bit easier if you just change the picture in another editing software. One that I like to use is Paint, because then you can really, draw it down in size and then change it that way. Another thing you can typically do is crop, although I'm not sure why this picture isn't letting me really edit things in just the drag and drop editor. What you can do is you can go to picture and automatically change cropping, or you can change sizes. Absolute seems to be all that we can do with this specific file, but let's go into scaling. Let's scale the height back down to maybe 19%. And my aspect ratio currently is locked, which is just height vertically and width horizontally. The reason that as I click this height option, changes the size with width, is because I have my aspect ratio locked relative to the original picture size. If I unclick that one, then I can really minimize things here. And that'll make it so that I can scale it without relative to, the original size of the picture. I could also unlock this aspect ratio here and scale just the height or just the width. I think it's better to lock the aspect ratio personally, then get it smaller that way, and then I'll hit OK. As you can see, I now have a picture right down here. That's a much smaller size. And it's glitching a little bit just because of the way I've edited this. There we go. If I just scroll up and down, now that picture is much smaller, and that hyperlink is still on it. If I hit save right now and hit OK, cancel, hit new email, you can see that picture is now much smaller. Oh, I am so sorry. You are absolutely right. And give me one moment to scroll through these questions. Sorry, the view of them is a little small for me, so I'm just trying to get a better view. Greg, yes, you asked if there is a way to receive multiple accounts all together instead of having to click on each one individually. Yes, there is. It's a little tricky to set up, but what you can do is you can consolidate all of your email accounts into Outlook profiles. That was something I was actually planning on covering in the next one, but I want to answer your question in more detail. Let me get back to your question here in a moment. We have another question here, which I think is a little bit more straightforward to answer, which is how do you add calendar to the email view screen? I didn't quite cover it because I think we were kind of running out of time, but these views down here in the bottom right left-hand corner are actually the different tabs of different things. This little one right here that has a little calendar pop-up is the calendar screen. And that's how you can add a calendar in. You can create different options from here. But I think your question might more pertain to how I brought up this bar over here on the right-hand side, right here. If I'm wrong, just let me know. But the way that I did that, and I'm gonna erase all drawings before I do, is I went to View, To-Do bar. I have calendar selected right now, along with tasks. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn all of those off. And now you can actually see our menu items up here because of my screen aspect ratio changing. But if you wanted to add that in, all you had to do is click To-Do bar and then hit calendar, and you'll have your calendar view up over here. You can also do tasks, and that will have the tasks bar open up as well. Greg, back to your question. Sorry to make you wait. You can add multiple email accounts through things called profiles, but it's a little bit difficult. What you can do is if you click on your Windows icon and go to, I believe it's Control Panel, click on that, then you get access to all of the different general control settings of your computer. Because Outlook is specific to Windows, you're going to want to find Mail. And if you right-click Mail and hit Open, it will bring up this Mail Setup for Outlook option. If you click on Email Accounts, then it'll allow you to add a bunch of email accounts in, but I don't think that directly addresses your question. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit Show Profiles. Now, I have two different profiles applied here. I have the example profile, and I have the Outlook profile. If I wanted to integrate my personal email with my example email, for example, then I would say Add, name a new profile. This would be something like integrated. And then I hit OK. You can change the email address. For example, I'm going to use Tom and then hit Next. And that will create a profile for just one of the emails. Then you can hit Add another account. And then let's call this Test. The email address will be the example email address we're using. Because I'm in my server, I don't have to enter a password, but you might. It depends on your IT person. I can then hit Finish and hit OK. Hit OK. One of the things that I actually forgot to mention here, and I'm going to get back in and address it for you, is if I go into the Show Profiles option, if you're doing this, you're going to want to make sure you always prompt for a different profile to be used. For example, if you wanted to just have one profile, you don't need to do that. But as you can see, I have quite a few. So I always have this prompt for a profile to be used here. You could also always use a specific profile and then just select one from the dropdown. And hit OK. And then I'm going to close out of Outlook real quick. If I then hit my Outlook address, then I get to choose which profile I'm starting in. We chose integrated. And I hit OK. and it'll take a minute while it does initial setup. But as you can see, I've got my example inbox over here, and I've got my actual inbox and email up above. So that's how you would get a bunch of email accounts together. If I wanted to actually send a new email as well, I now have access, if I click on the drop-down, to show where I'm sending it from as well. So I hope that answered your question, Greg. It was a little bit more in depth though. We also have another question, which is, when will this be available? We try to get all of these posted. Oh, here go my calendar notifications. So I'm going to actually exit out. But yeah, no, these will be available online here probably by Friday. What we normally do is we have them posted on our website. If we go to www.crnstone.com and then hit Resource Center Webinar Series, then that gives you access to all of our recorded webinars for the past year or so. If I click on Tech Tuesday Access Recordings, you can see we've even got a little placeholder for taking Outlook to the next level right here already. That doesn't mean that it's up yet, but it should be available by Friday. We try to get those pretty quick, so it might even be available by the end of the day tomorrow. And we even have all of the 2020 library here as well. That kind of brings me a little bit over time, so I don't have much more time to answer questions. But if you have a question that we didn't cover today, or if you would like to bring something to my attention, or just talk to me about Outlook or other tech, please feel free. I'm going to go ahead and put my contact information back on the screen for you real quick. That's my phone number down there, and my email address as well. It's tlevine, Levine, @crnstone.com. As always, I'm your tech guru, Tom Levine, and I hope you have a wonderful day and rest of your week. Thanks.